greatest organization of professional wrestling today, and that is why Greg the Hammer Valentine is standing here right now, and that is why I am here in the UWF. To challenge everybody, because I am the greatest in professional wrestling. It doesn't matter what federation you're talking about, but I am in the UWF, and I'm throwing out a challenge. Come on and take Greg the Hammer Valentine, the greatest, the master of the figure 4 leg lock. I'll meet you right there in that square circle.
Greg the Hammer Valentine explodes into the Universal Wrestling Federation tonight, along with the controversial feature match as Ivan Koloff grapples with Steve the Wild Thing Ray. It's all coming to you next on the UWF Fury Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the UWF FuryCast, the podcast where I, Gene Jackson, willingly go week by week through the insane, bizarre, and often legally questionable world of Herb Abrams' Universal Wrestling Federation, because clearly I've made some questionable life choices. Let me tell you, Herbie went full Herb on this one. This crowd's hot, the angles are hot, and the chain Ivan Koloff hid under the turnbuckle is also hot. And seemingly has more heat with the fans than most of the UWF wrestlers. And honestly, could probably cut a better promo than most of them, too. That's right. This is episode 14 of the Fury Hour, and it's a big one. We're finally here in the grand ballroom of the Penta Hotel in New York City. You've been hearing about it for weeks, and finally we're getting a look at it. And I also have to say, this might be the most coherent UWF show to date. I know, it's shocking to hear, but by that, I only mean it's about half as much as a fever dream than it normally feels like watching this show. We've got Greg the Hammer Valentine's debut. We got Iceman King Parsons taking on Dusty Wolf. The Wild Thing, Steve Ray, is going to be getting a rematch with the Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff. And we got Rick Rude just hanging out in the crowd for no damn reason. So let's get into it. Opening match sees the debuting Greg the Hammer Valentine taking on Sonny Blaze. That's right. We're starting out hot with the debut of the Hammer. He's got the robe. He's got the signature scowl. And the entire crowd at the Penta Hotel is standing up, popping for him like they think it's Ric Flair. Because probably most of these folks, honestly, they probably do. But bless them nonetheless. Poor Sonny Blaze. He gets lit up like a Times Square billboard. Valentine absolutely wrecks Sonny Blaze, chopping him, suplexing him. And finally, you know what's coming. That figure 4 leg lock. I got to say, Valentine was in tremendous shape here and seemed to be a bit revitalized. And I remembered him being in this era, which made me wonder how old he was here. So I went and looked it up. And it turns out Valentine's 40 at this point. So he still has plenty of gas left in the tank there. And, you know, I don't know that any of us thought he would still be getting in the ring now from time to time in 25, but he certainly looked like he was ready to go here. And he's all in on the UWF, even if it's not for very long. But anyway, Valentine gets the win. He cuts a promo where he declares the UWF the best company in the world. Which means one of two things. Either Valentine is high out of his mind, or no other company would take his calls at this time. And truthfully, I'm sure we're somewhere in the middle of those two answers, if we're being honest. Then he's going to be off to Captain Lou's corner later in the show, so get ready for that. That's exactly as crazy as you could imagine it to be. Next up, we get a video clip from... this is shocking. Let's just check out this clip of the newest acquisition of Herb Abrams' UWF.
Hi, I know lots of you have been surprised, but you've been watching UWF. This true, and it's me, Andre the Giant. So don't be surprised anymore, because you're going to see a lot of me. Because I've been challenging everybody on UWF to traveling with me and to come in the ring against me anytime they want, anywhere they want, because UWFs go all over the world.
Okay, so this is an audio-only podcast, so since I couldn't put up, a translation on the screen, that was Andre the Giant, if you didn't take that from that slightly hard to decipher promo there. So, yeah, Herb Abrams has done what would seemingly be impossible, and he has gotten Andre the Giant on board for some appearances. But enjoy while you can, because up to this point, I think Vince had pretty much just been ignoring the UWF. He just kind of laughed him off. But getting Andre on his TV show, I do believe, grabbed Vince's attention. I don't think Vince was worried about him as competition per se, but I feel like Vince probably felt like Andre appearing on a different show, especially one such as UWF, probably devalued him for future use from the WWF. So Vince got him locked back into a contract pretty quickly. But we're going to hear from Andre a couple more times before he disappears from the UWF like so many others tend to do. Next up, we get Iceman King Parsons, still hot after Colonel DeBeers whipped his cousin, referee Larry Sampson, like a scene from Roots. And now he is warming up for his big match next week with Colonel DeBeers by taking on this week Dusty Wolf. Iceman is in full strut mode. He's looking sharp here in the Big Apple. Of course, Iceman, not a lot of matches in New York. I'm sure this wasn't his first match, but he's not real familiar with wrestling in New York City. But here he is at the Penta Hotel, gearing up for his big showdown next week with Colonel DeBeers. Dusty Wolf, who looks like your uncle who still brags about his high school bench press record. But Dusty's a well-traveled veteran, even at this point. And they have a solid match here. Parsons shows off some quick reversals, headbutts, and ends it, of course, with his big move that he finishes off with that he calls the Rumper Stumper, or at least they call it on commentary, the Rumper Stumper here in the UWF. Yikes. Next week, episode 15, one-on-one, Iceman Parsons and Colonel DeBeers. That should be quite the match. Commentary teased it pretty heavily throughout this match and throughout the show, and I'm legit looking forward to a UWF match now, but probably for all the wrong reasons, not what they're thinking. Next up, Don the Rock Muraco's in action once again, taking on Chris Michaels. So listeners of my Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast may be familiar with Chris Michaels, but here he is up in New York taking on The Rock. And here comes Muraco out to the ring to the Hawaii 5-0 theme song, because, that's clever. Muraco's from Hawaii, right? Let me tell you, Muraco is fired up. He looks like a brick wall in a pair of wrestling trunks here. Chris Michaels tries to sneak attack him at the start, and Muraco just yeets his ass from one side of the ring to the other. Some back body drops, clotheslines, multiple suplexes. At one point, Muraco goes to pin Michaels and then just pulls him up off the mat to beat him up some more. And of course, that's not a very babyface action, but hey, it's UWF. Are there really any true baby faces here? I don't think so. And then boom, at ringside, ravishing Rick Rude. No music, no fanfare. There he is, just casually sitting in the crowd with this look on his face that says, yeah, I might work here now, or maybe I'm just here for the free Coke. You never know. Muraco comes over the rope, stares him down for a moment. They have a bit of a little exchange there, and then eventually Muraco gets back to business. He hits poor Chris Michaels with what they're calling the Hawaiian Hammer, which is his version of a tombstone pile driver, and he gets the win here in this big match. While they get a shot of Rick Rude mean mugging at ringside, apparently he took a wrong turn on his way from the WWF down to WCW. Rude Muraco, is this an upcoming feud? A hallucination? Did Rick Rude actually buy a ticket to a UWF event? Who knows? Stick around. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks here on the FuryCast.
We'll return after these messages.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at uswapodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. But that's not all. You can also check out the Pro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Tired of the same boring wrestling podcast? Need something with attitude, chaos, and maybe just a little cussing? That's STSPod.club, and we got it all covered. We've got wrestling weirdness with WTF News Desk, 5-minute time limit, and the Southern Fried Brain of me, BT, during the whole ship. We also have Rolling into Mempho every week about the current Memphis wrestling. Interviews, hot takes, and wrestling outrageousness so wild it might get you banned in 12 states. That's right, it's SDSPod.club, or search all podcast catchers for Shooting the Shiznit, where wrestling podcasts grow chest hair. Not sure what that meant. Love my mama.
And then it's that time of the show I know you all look forward to each and every week. Captain Lou is back with another Captain Lou's Corner. Tonight's guest, as we mentioned earlier, Greg the Hammer Valentine. Somebody who Captain Lou once managed back in the day in the WWF, but now it just feels like two old men yelling at each other with raspy voices. But let's check out another edition of the Captain Lou's Corner.
Yes, wrestling fans, the old rubber band, the fat man, Lou Albano, back with the Captain's Corner, baby. And when you talk about legends, you're talking about the name of Valentine. Well, this is a gentleman that I handled when he was Intercontinental Champion, Greg the Hammer Valentine. You know, I got to say, Greg, I don't agree with your tactics, brother, but you are one of the best, I've got to say. Go ahead, tell him out of it, baby. I made you a lot of money in professional wrestling, haven't I? Yeah. So what? Agree to my tactics, but I made this man a lot of money. Yeah, so? But then I smartened up and I moved on. I did my own thing. I signed my own contracts. I make my own matches. I make my own deals. And that's why I'm right here in the UWF. Yeah, you make your own deals, but let me tell you something. We went a long way, but then you turned to the sour. Then you turned to the sour. But you did have the sense to come into the UWF because you realized that the Universal Wrestling Federation has the finest talent in the world today. That is one thing you did, even though you've got the brain of a BB. Now go ahead, brother. Tell him. Free speech. In other words, I could say what I want to. I could say exactly what's going on through my mind. I could talk about how fat and disgusting Captain Lou Albano is, because that's the truth. And I could talk about how I should be the world heavyweight champion right here in any federation, the world, the universe. I should have the championship belt around my waist because, well, I am the master of the figure four. I might be old. Remember that. And I might be ugly, but watch your hands and you're on my show, and I'm the boss here, baby, and I'm telling you, you are good, but you've got to come into the best. You're in Universal Wrestling Federation, and that's where we have the best. So you don't impress me. Got it? Look at that. Bleach blonde.
There you go. Captain Lou does it again, as he referred to himself at the beginning of that clip, the rubber band fat man. And I swear, has that man ever held a microphone in his hand without saying something about somebody's brain being the size of a BB? Christ. Lou, get some new material, please. Well, B. Brian Blair is back, and so is Honey. She's fully recovered from getting headbutted by Cowboy Bob Orton, and what I still say was one of the most violent actions we've seen on UWF thus far. They make their way to the ring to AC/DC's You Shook Me All Night Long, which is, well, fun. He's facing Mike Williams, who I don't think we've seen here before. Mike Williams looks like he borrowed his gear from an indie show Lost and Found box. Very nice robe that he's sporting that I'm sure somebody somewhere is missing. Blair dominates. He hits hip tosses, slams, and finally locks in his new finisher, the Scorpion. And despite the piss-poor execution, and although this was one of his better attempts, still far from good, Blair does get the submission win. Now, if we've learned anything in the past couple of weeks, this should be where Cowboy Bob Orton, John Tolos come running into the ring to whip him with a belt. But this week, that doesn't happen. Nobody runs in, so Blair goes down to ringside with our ringside interviewer, Herb Abrams. Blair calls out Orton while Herb just randomly makes it a point of mentioning he just saw John Tolos downstairs drinking at the hotel bar, because why not mention that, right? Orton and Tolos respond with a deranged backstage promo that sounds like it was shot during a gas leak. Tolos is rambling, we'll slice them, then mash them, then smash them, like it's a mashed potato recipe, or perhaps he's moonlighting at a Waffle House to supplement his poor UWF income. But, whew, man, these UWF promos are something else, from the wrestlers to the announcers to the managers. You just never know what you're going to get. Speaking of that, we see the return of David Sammartino, who we haven't seen on the Fury Hour in several weeks now, taking on a man we've seen every week, Cutie Pie Louis Spicoli. And this match was solid. David Sammartino, fresh off a 35-pound weight cut, been doing some solid training, and he looks better than ever. He's ripped. Back and forth action, arm drags, suplexes. Cutie Pie gets him some offense, but David counters with a figure four and taps out the Cutie Pie. So, I don't know. We've got two baby faces using the figure four, because from all intents and purposes, it appears Valentine may be a baby face, is what I thought at first. But no, he may be a heel because of the way he interacted with Captain Lou. And now we got David Sammartino using the figure four. So we may have one of those very exciting feuds that's based around a finishing move. And it's always exciting when that finishing move is the figure four leg lock. Bruno Sammartino, I should say, was fun on commentary here, trying so hard to be objective about his son, but clearly beaming with pride. It's fun listening to Bruno call his son's matches, but painfully ironic considering how their relationship would end up turning out. But we can enjoy this nonetheless. But once David gets the win with the figure four, he celebrates in the ring to what could only be described as a small, polite smattering of applause from this very uninspired New York audience so far from what we've seen. So here's something to get you fired up. If that match didn't do it, if what you've heard so far hadn't do it, let's hear from the legend himself, that master of the microphone, Killer Kowalski.
My name was Killer Kowalski. I was a former world champion. And I always associated with champions. Now I'm associated with a new champion, UWF. Listen in, tune in, and be with the best. The world's champion, UWF.
All right. Killer Kowalski's here. So we're just snatching up and putting anybody we can find in front of a camera and hoping they can cut a promo. No disrespect to the legend of Killer Kowalski, but you know, promos wasn't exactly his strong suit, and he's long past his prime here. But anyway, that's another legend and former world champion associated with the UWF. So.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
But now it's time for the main event. It's the sequel. Wild Thing Steve Ray versus Ivan Koloff 2. Chain Harder. We had to give it a name, I guess. Steve Ray's fired up. He got screwed last time, and he says he is not getting done that way again. The crowd loves him. And finally, we get some enthusiasm out of the audience here. And he gets in some solid offense. He hits Ivan with drop kicks, clotheslines, the works. He's coming at him from all angles. But then the inevitable happens. Ivan Koloff uses that damn chain again. He pulls it over from the turnbuckle where it was hanging across the pad of the turnbuckle, then rams Ray's head into it, slides it back, and while everyone in the building saw Ivan Koloff do this, apparently referee Jesse Hernandez refs with his eyes closed because he didn't see it, so he counts 3, and once again, that rotten commie, Ivan Koloff, has stolen another win from our hero, Wild Thing Steve Ray. Well, there you have it. Steve Ray loses. Ivan Koloff gloats. Rick Rude is still lurking at ringside. Steve Ray protests. Bruno's pissed. The crowd chants USA, USA. And the UWF ends with chaos, confusion, and Koloff celebrating like he just won the bronze medal at the Special Olympics. Then they tease that the Honky Tonk Man is going to be here next week in Captain Lou's corner. Holy shit. Honky Tonk Man and Captain Lou's corner. Can't wait to see that one. But think about it. This week we see the debut of Greg the Hammer Valentine. Next week we get the debut of the Honky Tonk Man. Could we be seeing a reunion of Rhythm and Blues? Oh, we can only hope and pray. Before we go, let's hear this.
Again, a reminder to call the UWF Power Line at 1-900-420-4UWF. Find out all about what's happening in the UWF and hear from your favorite UWF personalities. That's 1-900-420-4UWF for the UWF Power Line.
Right in the dead of January, and Sports Channel America and UWF are heating up all over the country. People like Steve Williams, people like Paul Londo, people like Brian B. Blair, Captain Lou Albano, the Wild Thing Steve Ray, and yours truly, The Rock, all right here on Sports Channel USA, Universal Wrestling Federation. Whoa, yeah, even them dumb ugly power twists, I'd like to pop them both right in the mouth.
People like Brian B. Blair, that's right. And that, folks, is UWF Fury Hour episode number 14. We had chain shots, half-ass scorpions applied, Rick Rude sightings, glittery robes, and Greg Valentine calling Captain Lou a fat slob, all while claiming to be the top wrestling promotion in the world and trying to prove it by introducing us to Andre the Giant. That's why I do this podcast. I may not survive it, but it certainly has its fun moments, right? Join me next week for episode 15 when the Iceman finally goes one-on-one with Colonel DeBeers, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff returns, and Cactus Jack is back to inflict more punishment, though mostly on himself. This is it. This is the UWF FuryCast. Subscribe, like, and share it with someone who deserves to suffer just like we do. And until next time, I'm Gene Jackson, and I watch this shit so you don't have to. You're welcome.
Oh,